Hi, Eve. Thanks so much for coming and joining me on this chat. Would you be able to just introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and really just a little bit of a background of how you've come to be here today, really?
Yes, thank you for having me. So my name's Eve. I'm an accredited therapist. I've been a therapist for around 9 years now. And I've come to this podcast as I think there's a shared interest in terms of being neurodivergent and for me being late realised neurodivergent. So although I've been a therapist for a long while and worked with a broad range of clients, as time's gone on and I discovered I'm autistic, I found that out 2 years ago. That's changed my direction a little bit in the sense of I now advocate for neurodivergent people, or I try to, and I want to share awareness about that and also share my own story, which is why I was really happy to connect with you, because I know you're going in a similar direction to that.
So how long have you been a therapist for?
Around 9 years now. I taught counselling studies for a couple of years as well, and I run a private practice.
Right. And do you think subconsciously you went into being a therapist because you maybe had that neurodivergent autistic way, subliminally there, and then it's come out as time's gone on?
Definitely. One of the first things when I was actually doing some training on working with autistic clients, which is actually what brought me to my own realisation. There was a lot of boxes I was ticking and saying, wow, this sounds familiar. And I honestly would have never have put myself as that. I never even considered I was ADHD or autistic, anything like that. I think a lot of that was due to my own lack of awareness and my own ignorance around what being autistic looked like. I kind of went with the stereotype and I wasn't informed enough, which again is another subject, another topic. But I think that being a therapist, the first thing that really struck me when I discovered I was autistic, I thought I can't be, because I'm a therapist and autistic people don't have empathy. Because I'd gone with that stereotype. So I was like, well, I think I am, but I can't be for that reason.
Wow.
And then I went to Google, which I do for everything, seeking information. And the amount of neurodivergent therapists out there is huge, actually. And I think, and this is what I've heard from other therapists as well, I think often when people go into therapy, they go in perhaps because they've had their own experiences, their own traumas. But I think there's also a real drive there to understand the world. And to understand human behaviour, because I never could.
What a light bulb moment.
That's that link for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So with your learning of how to be a therapist, did you have to go into a college or a university, or was it like human-led where you went into a therapist's workplace to learn?
It was both. So I went to university for 4 years. I initially started with psychology and then I moved over to counselling studies. So it was a mixture of studying, placement, and that was a time, again, where I would have never have considered I was autistic. On our course, we didn't do anything really to do with being neurodivergent. So the information wasn't there. And I think even though that was like 9, maybe 10 years ago now, I think things have changed a lot. I think we have a lot more information out there right now. But as well, I think because I was in an environment where that was my special interest. I was in a place where it was quite a small class. I felt comfortable and I was so into everything that I was learning. I didn't really struggle. So again, those kind of signs, if you like, that I was autistic and struggling, they never came up for me at uni. It was after that, really, that I started to notice things. And then much later on that I discovered I am neurodivergent.
So do you think then, being in an environment where you felt safe, you was learning something that you was really interested in, and you had a smaller group of people around you, did you find that you didn't really have burnouts being in that situation? Do you think if you'd been in a big lecture of maybe like 300 people and you was having to put a lot more extra energy into it, you would have had more burnouts? Or do they not really?
Absolutely. To me, they do. Again, it's so important that, I acknowledge every person is unique, no matter what your neurotype, you're all unique. So I can only speak from my experience, really. But I was thinking about this beforehand. I was thinking about times I've experienced burnout and why then, what's been going on for me. And I was like, how do I define burnout? And I was like, how am I going to like put that down into a sentence? And what I came up with, I've written it down so I didn't forget. I was like, for me, it's the result of accommodating a way of living that is detrimental to that neurotype. So if I'm living in a way that's not right for my neurotype, that's not right for the way my brain needs, I'm going to struggle. And if I keep doing that over and over again, and I keep pushing myself in a way that's not healthy for my neurotype, I'm going to burn out, I'm going to crash. So for me, that experience at university, that's really all I had going on. I was at university a couple of days a week, and I was getting a lot of rest. It was a small environment. There weren't too many demands on me. I went into burnout pretty soon after finishing university, when I had to then go into the workplace, and I started to feel a lot of pressure. And I think, I mean, that, again, this is quite a heavy subject, so I want to just drop in the word masking, but I think that's a topic all on its own. But I feel that I'd suddenly become this qualified person, this professional person. You know, I had like letters after my name. I was part of a membership body. And I think that I felt a real pressure to mask more, even though I didn't really need to. You know, I didn't need to change anything, but I think I felt a pressure. And I think that accumulation of things and a busy life and financial pressures and just being in those environments that, like you used the word safe, I think that's really important, that maybe were new, were unfamiliar, and that didn't feel safe. And although I say that that was autistic burnout, neurodivergent burnout, I didn't recognise that that's what it was at the time, because I didn't know I was neurodivergent.
No. When I first met my partner, been with him about 16 years. So I had my two youngest children. They would have been toddlers at the time when I met Luke. And the one thing that he says really stood out to him when we first started dating is how much I slept. He said, I've never, ever met anyone as tired as you. You're a really tired person. And I thought, God, I wonder, is it because I'm a young mom, you know, got these kids and busy, whatever. But now I have an understanding of neurodivergent with the autism, with the ADHD. I know that I was really burnt out, you know, with children and trying to go to university and get my education and everything. Those sleepy moments, you know, were all burnouts. And you do, once you get that education and that understanding, and you look back on your life, you can go, actually, that wasn't me being lazy. That wasn't me being tired. That was me burning out.
And I'm really pleased you shared that. And this is why I like to have these conversations, because I spent so many years feeling shame, feeling that I was a lazy person.
Yes,
and actually, I need more sleep. My brain needs more sleep. And I'm okay with that now. And when I've kind of spoken about that, when I've allowed myself that, I do better. I feel better, because I'm accommodating myself for my own experience. And that idea of lazy and we should have this amount of sleep and we should be able to do things, it's ableism, isn't it? And I think that the more we talk about this, we educate ourselves and other people. That's when we can say, so for this person to be at their optimum best, what do they need? And for me, that is extra sleep. And I'm okay with that now.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter's 20 now. She's gone off to university, so we've got a spare bedroom in the house. So Fridays are my burnout days. It doesn't matter what I'm doing for the rest of the week, if I'm really busy or not. I know on Fridays that is my day where I'm allowed to burn out. Usually it's a takeaway night for some people, or it might be a bottle of wine night for some people. That's my day that's my evening to completely switch off. So on a Friday night, I go nice and early up to my daughter's bedroom with the dog, switch off, put Netflix on, and then my partner will sleep in, you know, our bedroom together, and I'll be in that one. And I've allowed myself, within me as a woman, but also within our relationship together, that I just have that one day, because or that one evening, like you say, I work better once I've had that break. I, you know, can focus. I'm actually a nicer person to be around. Otherwise, I can be quite a bitch, because I've got a house full of men at the moment. So I can definitely get a little bit ratty with them all. So I need that. And it's really, really important for me to have that break. I wish, looking back on my life, I had that education and knowledge that that's what was happening to me, so I could have took myself out of that situation when my children were younger to say, I just need a couple of hours. I just need something to, sleep or just break away from my life just to be able to come back into it sane.
I hear that. And I think that sounds amazing. Like, you're giving me ideas. I'm like, can I come? I think that it is so important.
Give me eye contact, you're welcome.
I'm good with that. I am fine with that. I'll just doom scroll. But I think I found myself doing that in a way of, I would always stay up, and I still do to a point. I stay up late at night. And we know that a lot of neurodivergent people do that as well.
Yeah.
And, every morning I would regret it and so on. And I'd really push myself. And it's something that I'm learning to do in a healthier way. Yeah. Because it was that in the daytime, that sensory overwhelm, that masking, that not stimming freely, all of those things. It was kind of like everyone else went to bed and that was my time. And I don't even know what I'd do in that time, but it was just, I suppose, a decompress. It was almost like just coming down, just relaxing the best way I knew how. But again, until you know that's what you need, and I think, and I keep saying it over and over, and I always will, we need to have these conversations, because I wish, even you saying what you've just said, I wish I'd have heard that 20 years ago, because I've never given myself permission. But it's hard to give yourself permission when you don't understand what you need or why, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you find a lot of your, do you call them clients or customers, or, those patients, clients, do you find a lot of your clients that come to you that are neurodivergent, do they talk, the general consensus, do they talk of burnouts? Is that one of their symptoms or main concerns?
It is. And again, I think it's that raising awareness, because often, there's a lot of late realised neurodivergent people as well. So I think that when people are late realised, they're figuring a lot of it out just now, and they might come to therapy with that. So there's a lot to process. And actually, some of them haven't heard of burnout. They'll have experienced it, but they might not have heard of it. And I think that for me, and for some of the people I've worked with and people I've spoken to, I think the issue with not fully understanding neurodivergent burnout is it's often misdiagnosed as well. So for me, for many years, I struggled with the idea that I was experiencing depression or anxiety. Wow. And what was happening was I was trying to work through depression and anxiety, trying to treat that through therapy, through antidepressants, and it never worked. Yeah. And that left me feeling worse. It left me feeling, and I hear this from a lot of neurodivergent people, like an alien. Like, I would research the criteria of, am I bipolar? Do I have depression? All of these things, but nothing ever quite fit. Yeah. And the techniques or the way of healing, that never worked either. And that makes sense why it wouldn't, because if you're trying to treat something, with, you give somebody a solution for something and that's not the problem, it's not going to work. So that was really hard. And I found that with people I've worked with, they've spent many years thinking one thing's going on. I suffer from depression. And you might feel depressed as a result of being in burnout, as a result from masking and living in a way that's not authentic to you. But actually, that's not the root cause. And if you don't get to that root cause, you're not going to feel better long term. So again, I think it's about education. I think it's about saying, is this depression? Are we just saying to people, that's depression, take this pill, you're going to feel it? Or is there something more going on? Yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it? You think that we don't fit in. I've always felt different. You have all of these feelings growing up, but then when I speak to someone like you and I think, no, you're not different. There's like a whole community of us out there that we've lived exactly the same lives and same experience. And it's sad, isn't it? To spend your whole life feeling like the alien when actually we're not. We're a whole bloody planet, aren't we? So it is.
Definitely. I think I'm starting to say, where are the neurotypical people at?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that there's just such a misunderstanding about, what it means to be neurodivergent, isn't there? And again, that's a whole other conversation. But I think I'll always speak about it, because one, I think I was really excited when I found out, I was like, I'm autistic, this explains everything. But that in itself came with a crash. And I think that came with burnout as well. But when I understood burnout through an autistic lens, I got through it a lot better and a lot quicker. Because my burnouts have occurred at different times in my life. Again, I've thought there were periods of depression. I've not really understood them. And my last stage of burnout, which was before I found out I was autistic, it was becoming quite serious. So I was losing my words, my speech was affected. I was having cognitive issues. I couldn't do simple tasks that I've always been able to do. And that's frightening. And the reality is that happens to a lot of people who are neurodivergent in burnout. And that's not to scare anybody or say that will happen. But I think we need to know that too. The word burnout, sometimes it might sound a little minimizing. I'm burnt out. It can be serious for someone who's neurodivergent. Recovery is so important.
Yeah, definitely. What does a burnout feel like for you? For me, it's actually a physical thing. I feel like my brain hurts, and it literally does feel like it's a pain. And my whole entire body, I feel like I've got creepy crawlies. It's like my blood just will not flow smoothly. It's like, guys, the thorns in there. Like I can feel every part of my body, and I just have to go and switch off. I get incredibly thirsty as well, and I just have to go to bed for the day, or I have to just switch off, and zero stimulants. I cannot hold conversations either, or anyone even ask me a question. I don't want to think. And then as soon as I've had that rest, I honestly feel like I'm 16 again. I just feel so energized. But for me, I mentally don't know when I'm going to have a burnout, because I'm very, fixated on whatever I'm doing. But it's actually the physicalness of it that gives me the idea of, I better switch off here. What is it for you? What are your symptoms for you to think, I've got a burnout coming?
Well, that's really interesting, and it's not nice to hear, is it? But it's interesting to learn from other people and how and it's interesting you talked about that physical, because I think sometimes when we think about burnout, we might think more about what's going on in the mind and things like that. And there's been a chain of events for me since I discovered I'm autistic, and finding that out allowed me to then say, okay, so the way I'm living, this is really not good for me. This is really unhealthy. Like, I don't know how much longer I can continue masking and continue in my role, because I was living in burnout, but I was I wasn't having that rest day. I wasn't having recovery because I didn't understand it. I was just kind of like, I've been here before. There's nothing that can help me. I've just got to carry on. And I think that's where my body and I was losing my words and things like that. It was almost telling me, no, Eve, you can't carry on with this. When I found out I was autistic, it led me to then seek help, because it gave me that realization of there's nothing wrong with me. Of course I'm struggling because I'm autistic and I never knew. And I started to research things for myself, but I also went to my GP and things like that. And it was from there that I was diagnosed as having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility, and fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and chronic pain. But that really helped too, because it was kind of like, of course I do. It was that moment of course I have those things. But because I was so used to masking, shutting myself down, not understanding what was going on for me, almost to the point of, it doesn't really matter because nothing's going to help. I've just been living with all these things. And that is really, there's a part of me there even saying it that I feel really sad about that. That how much time did I sort of spend in that? But I can also smile because now I do know. And I think that's it, isn't it? Awareness is everything. When we know about something, that's when we say, do I accept this or do I change it? And it allows you to also, I wanted to say ask for support, but not even ask for support, allow support, allow people to support me, which I've never really allowed before.
No. And just the acknowledgement of people listening to you and just hearing you, like, that's therapy in itself, isn't it? Even if people don't want to understand, or they can't understand, or or I'm not wanting physical or emotional help, just to hear my voice and listen to me say, I'm a bit burnt out, I need that time, or whatever. It means everything, doesn't it? Rather than to be told, crack on and do this, and you're bipolar, you're dramatic, It's just,
and
it's
that's
nice.
it, again, so many, like, I've been called so many things in my life,
Me too.
and I'm laughing about it now, but at the time, some of that's been really harmful. I've been called dramatic, I've been called crazy, I've been called mental, all of these things. And I look back now, and again, there's a sadness, because what I thought was depression or anxiety, in particular, a real link between having social anxiety and at one point in my life, agoraphobia, not leaving the house. I was too scared to. That was sensory trauma. That was sensory overwhelm. Of course, I didn't want to leave the house because it was noisy and it was loud and it was bright, and I didn't know how to hold myself or how to be, because I was in burnout. Because when we're in burnout, those sensory aversions we might have that we might be able to cope with, they can become harder as well. I don't know about you, but for me, things can seem louder, or the lights can feel more intense when I'm in burnout. I don't like them at the best of times anyway, but
I know when my partner's drinking a cup of tea and it's starting to irritate me because he's slurping from there instead of there, I think, I'm going to go to bed early tonight rather than have an argument, because I know it's on me. You can start to, you're hypersensitive to everything, aren't you? The irritations of it all.
100%.
What do you do to relax? I sleep and I'll go to bed and I switch off from the world. What do you do? What are your things to be able to calm you down and reset you?
I was thinking about this earlier because as a therapist, I'm very aware that I often need to practice what I preach. So there's that element of, I will say to clients all the time, let's look at this. How are you going to have that recovery and that rest? And I'm still learning. I'm always, like, I've got to be honest, I'm still learning what works for me. And I don't always recognize it. I think for me, I catch it earlier than I ever used to.
Right, yeah.
And that's the same. I know that because my meltdowns are a lot less frequent. And meltdowns, again, just to quickly jump on that, meltdowns were something that I never knew were meltdowns. I used to just think that I had this overwhelming sadness and that I would cry, and then it would be, I'm crying for no reason, what's wrong with me, all these things. So even meltdowns I can embrace now, because I don't know if I'm ever going to fully stop them, but I have learned to say, as awful as they are, they almost provide a reset for my brain sometimes. And it's kind of like after a meltdown, I can go, right, what's next? And I know it's about trying to look after myself enough that they don't happen really frequently. But I don't even fight them anymore. It's kind of like, okay, what's been going on for me? I am living a life that maybe isn't always accommodating to my brain type. So do you know what? If the meltdown comes, I'm going to allow it. I don't have to overthink it. And it's that release for me. And I would say it's just been that acknowledging what I need and being able to say it to other people, to not always push myself too far. So my work schedule's changed. I no longer do early mornings because it doesn't work for me. I have extra sleep and I'm okay with it now. I'm saying okay with it. It's still that little bit when I go, it's because I'm autistic, justify myself. But again, it's learning. This is 40 years of masking, that I'm trying to undo. And I'm still there. I'm still jump in with those justifications and things like that. But I think just learning and just trying, for me, it can be things like, I know a lot of self-care looks different for everyone. For me, it can be researching things. It can be, you know what, I'm going to do another little mini course and I'm going to put these things together, because that's what my brain needs. And that's important. What works for each person and what works for that neurotype. It might be a special interest. It might be a hyperfixation. And it's learning to go with that, because that might be what you need.
Yeah. And it is interesting what causes burnouts, because it isn't working. It's not doing a 12-hour shift or, coming to work 7 days a week. That doesn't burn me out. It's doing things that I don't get dopamine pleasures from. And, I hope my children are not going to listen to this, but my kids have always burnt me out, because I've always found it really difficult being a mum. I've really, really struggled with that. And that's always burnt me out. Having a healthy relationship with my partner, that burns me out, because I have to, work at it. And, whereas with my business, I feel like it's part of me, and I'm so, into it, and I get so many dopamine hits from it, and I absolutely love it. And I could just, you know, work and work and work and not get those, you know, overwhelming tiredness and need to switch off. So it is really interesting what gives some people, you know, those burnouts, you know, where it might be with another person, it's their work that gives them it, and their children and, you know, their relationships actually come easily to them.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, isn't it? Again, to figure out that we're all individual regardless of neurotype. And I was thinking then, I was like, I get that. I do relate to that. And I think, you know, because there are times I can stay up and I could be, you know, if it's something I'm interested in, you say, write me an assignment on this or write me an essay on it. That will not tire me out. If anything, it will give me more energy. But I just do as well if it's that monotropic thinking, or with ADHD, like you say, it's those dopamine hits, it's those different interests. And I think that's why with burnout, it's not always about saying go and rest. Recovery it's almost that it needs to be bespoke to the person. So for me, it is extra sleep. But what else do I need in that? Sometimes it can be playing on a game on my phone. It can be scrolling through TikTok.
Just get lovely, gentle dopamine hit. It's so relaxing, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's about giving ourselves permission to do that, to say that that's okay, because actually if that's what works for me, and I think that that's what a lot of neurodivergent people do struggle with, and that links into masking, doesn't it? It's that giving themselves permission to say, but this is what works for me. This is what's going to help me be at my optimum best. Just because someone else says this is how we do self-care. You know, forget the shoulds. If it starts with a should, and I say this to all my therapy clients, if it starts with a should, put it in the bin. What we want to look at, what do we want, and what do we need? If it starts with a should, it's an external message. Challenge it. Don't listen to it. Put it in the bin.
Get rid of it.